We do have with us today a trainer, representative, product growth director for Bongo, formerly known as UCU. I was kind of reminded of that. I guess they changed their name or merged, something like that. In any case, they are on the cutting edge of providing some AI product in their tools. We did find out recently that SIU is a top 10 user of the video assignments or their tool. And so you might be familiar with Bongo in two ways. There's the virtual classroom, which is kind of like let's just call it a Zoom-like experience within D2L. And then there's the virtual assignment or the video assignments that has 4 options in it that allow students to submit work. And they've added a presentation coach as well as a cool tool for being able to pull from your prompts, rubrics, and so forth. And that's what we're going to be looking at today. So I'm going to step aside. Thank you all for joining and let Dana take over.
Awesome. Okay. Hi, everyone. So yes, I am Dana from Bongo. We are an integrated platform, like Craig said, with Brightspace. So we are consider us just a part of Brightspace. And that's why you'll see that all of my PowerPoints are branded with D2L, because we are just an extension. I always like to selfishly plug that I used to work at D2L for 15 years, and then I moved over to Bongo the last year or so ago. So I know you folks for many, many years in a different capacity. I was over in the product organization there. And I loved what Bongo was doing with video assignments. So I decided to continue my ed tech journey over with Bongo. And you're gonna see me kind of looking back and forth. Your faces are over on this screen and my presentation is over here. So I just love that we've got some friendly faces being shared on camera, because I like to kind of check in from time to time. I'm gonna nominate Craig, if that's okay, to make sure that if there's anything important that shows up on the chat, I can kind of see both. But if I've missed something, I'm also a really casual presenter, so feel free to unmute and just ask questions along the way if that works for everybody. Okay. So like Craig mentioned, we do have 2 different platforms, virtual classroom and video assignments. Today, we're going to talk about all things video assignments, because that's really where we're pouring a lot of our investment into. And like Craig mentioned, you guys are a huge user of video assignments, which is absolutely incredible to see. So hopefully we at least have 1 or 2 of you on the phone who have used our platform before, but if not, I'm going to cover all the bases. If you have used video assignments before, or even if you haven't, the first thing I always like to say is try to consider video assignments as more than the title suggests. I think people hear video and think that's all I can use it for, or assignments, and it's just about assignments. Really, it is an engagement tool as well. It is a collaboration tool, and of course, it is an assessment tool. So I'm going to talk a lot about the ways that you can use our platform as an engagement tool, a collaboration tool, and an assessment tool. And when it comes to thinking about those kind of 3 categories of engagement, collaboration, and assessment, I know that institutions like yourself have a lot of challenges that you're trying to overcome when supporting your learners. And I want you to think about video assignments in some of those challenges that you have as a way to solve for them. So some of the common challenges, and I've talked to Craig about these as well as others at your institution and across the board, these are really common. So some things like, how can I make sure participation and engagement is in fact happening? How do you know that your learners aren't just passively watching a video and not really consuming it or remembering it? How can you make sure that you're able to provide really personalized feedback? What if you have a self-paced course, or even just, 1 instructor and you don't have a TA to help support? How can I make sure that personalization is even possible in that kind of scenario? How can you make sure your learners are able to demonstrate real-world applicable knowledge? It's also one thing to say that they can demonstrate real-world knowledge, but will they actually be career ready? That's, the goal here is to make sure that your learners are career ready. How can I make sure my assessments are more authentic in nature? We're here today to talk about a lot of things related to AI, but there's also a lot of concerns about AI. How do I know my learners aren't just using ChatGPT to respond to my assessments? How do I actually know it's authentically them? And from an engagement perspective, how can I provide more experiential learning opportunities? There's nothing more we want than for learners to actually feel like they're part of that experience and that they're experiencing something that they would do in the real world. And how can I scale my feedback? If I could just pick one of these challenges that I talk to education institutions the most, it's probably the feedback. How can I make sure that I can scale myself, and also make sure that I can provide the level of feedback I want to my learners. So these are just some challenges. I'm sure you have many, many more that keep you up at night, but these are just some examples that I'm going to be using as we go through the video workflows as a way for you to think about us in a little bit of a different way. Cool? Cool. So what I like to do is just make sure everybody understands the workflow, and nobody likes death by PowerPoints. I promise. This is my second last slide. I might only come back to one at the end. We'll go into the actual product because that's what you guys want to see. But just so that we can understand where we are in the flow when I do jump into Brightspace, I wanted to talk about how the workflow works. So the first step is really creating the exercise or the assignment. So this is the instructor or the course designer, whoever's in charge of creating the exercise, can go in via Brightspace into our platform and create a video assignment. Then it's about the learner, obviously completing the exercise. So we're going to walk through what that looks like from a learner's perspective, both from how they complete their assessment, but also get some coaching tips and feedback throughout that process. Then they submit it for review. That could be to their instructor, that could be for peers, we'll talk about that. And finally, they're going to receive some feedback at the end of that exercise. So pretty simple flow. So what does it mean to create an exercise when you're deciding what kind of video assignment you want to learn? Last slide. We have, like Craig kind of briefly mentioned, 4 different video assignments. And I really like to hone in on the number 4 over and over and over again, because I think sometimes people assume that when they hear video assignment, it's just one thing that could be, you know, maybe some features turned on or off, but it is actually 4 very distinct workflows that can help you solve some of those challenges I talked about in very different ways. And I will share these slides with you as well, so you guys have this. At a very, very high level, before I dive in, the first is your individual assignment. And that's really about an individual learner coming on camera and doing a presentation. This could be your traditional oral presentation, or it actually could be a demonstration of physical skills. So I know you guys have a lot of medical programs like nursing. So nursing is a huge use case of ours. Something as simple as, well, not simple because I can never do it, but checking somebody's blood pressure on camera to showcase you know how to use the blood pressure device and that you know how to properly interact with your patient. The second one we have is question and answer, still by an individual learner. And this is where you're putting them on the spot, though, to answer questions in a limited amount of time. So I will showcase, you know, a question coming up on camera, and then they are put on camera to respond. And that can go back as many times as you'd like. We see that often used as a new way of doing quizzing. So if you're concerned about if the learner's the real person who's actually responding to questions, what better way than to put them on camera and respond themselves? But more often we're seeing it used as a simulation. So you can simulate a conversation back and forth, like a mock interview or a conversation between a mock patient, that kind of thing. Then we move into group assignment, which is the third one. And this is just as it sounds. It's about putting learners into groups to complete an assignment together. So it could just be a simple place for the learners to collaborate or for them to submit an assignment. And last but not least, we have interactive video. And that's really around taking video content you already have in your course and answering that challenge of how do I know my learners even watched it? How do I know they're even engaged with it? Did they even remember anything? So you have the ability to overlay different interactive elements like multiple choice questions, or even have their camera engaged so that they can respond to the video itself. So those are the 4. Obviously, I'm going to show you them all now. So I'm just going to jump over into Brightspace. And I'm going to start at the beginning process around creating an assignment as an instructor. I just want to show you, especially if we have any power users in the group, we've added some really cool additions to this create assignment process that should hopefully help you save some time and actually make the assignment really, really engaging. So I'm now over in Brightspace. I'm just going to jump into a course that I've created for myself. So it's not going to be as pretty as the courses you guys have created here. I'm just going to jump right into video assignments. So as an instructor or course designer, whoever's creating the assignments themselves, they can click on the video assignment nav bar in your Brightspace course. And this is where you can create any video assignment that you want to include in your course. This is my demo site. There's a lot of old video assignments in here. But on the very bottom right-hand corner, this is where you're going to add your video assignment, and you can choose one of those 4 types. So I'm only going to show the individual right now because that's where the changes have come into play, but they have the exact same look and feel regardless of which of the 4 that you're creating. So all I do is I create an assignment name. I can choose if I want a due date or not. You cannot have a due date associated to it. You can add a quick instructional video. So this could either be you recording yourself on your webcam, or maybe it's a video you've already produced somewhere else. You have the option to create auto captions for this at any point in time. So our system will automatically do that. So it's fully accessible. If you're a power user from years ago, I just always love to call out that we did update the instructions. It's about a year since we've updated, but it's small but mighty change. This instruction field is now an HTML editor, which is important because it means you can bold, you can put YouTube links in there, you can highlight. Before it was just a simple text box. So it's really important that you can have so much more flexibility here as far as the HTML editor goes. So that's your common things. You can also choose your evaluation type. So we have everything from percentage to rubrics to pass fail. You can decide what kind of evaluation type you would like. I will note this is all integrated with Brightspace. So whatever evaluation type you choose, it will then get automatically fed to the Brightspace gradebook. So there's no extra steps there. But here's where the AI fun comes into play. And this is all brand new and available in your Brightspace environment today. We have always had some AI feedback. So previous to this past release, if a learner were to record themselves, you could choose to have our AI give them feedback on things like rate of speech. Are they speaking too quickly or too slowly? Are they using too many filler words like ums and ahs and that kind of thing, which is very humbling if you ever run yourself through one of these. Am I mumbling? Am I being clear? That existed for a year or two at this point now on our platform. But we got a lot of feedback that we wanted some more coaching for learners. We wanted to coach them more on the contents of what they were saying and not just their communication style. So we have come up with this brand new ability for you to generate learning objectives or presentation objectives for this specific assignment. And from those learning objectives, our AI coach will then coach the learner specific to those objectives. So I'll show you quickly how to create the objectives, and then I'll show you the learner experience so it really ties it together. But in order to generate the objectives for this assignment, we're just going to quickly open up the Generate tool. And here you can put in any text that you have that is course specific. So this could be a textbook chapter, this could be an article, this could be a transcript from a video. So here I'm prepping for my communications course and I'm trying to test them on their ability to communicate like a leader. So you can imagine this is a web page or even a textbook. I'm just going to copy that text and I'm going to put it into the generator here. And it's going to consume all of this really, really quickly. And it's going to recommend some objectives for this presentation. You can run this generator as many times as you want. You can layer it. You can run it 5 times and layer materials over and over and over if you want, or just use one set of text. It should take between 12 to 15 seconds, so really not that long at all. And then once it's consumed that content, it's going to produce suggested learning objectives for this assignment. So there they are. It has determined based on this article that it's recommending 7 high-level learning objectives for this assignment. And below those objectives, I can see some sub-criteria that gets really, really, really specific as far as how I want to coach my learner to stay on track based on these materials. So as the instructor, I can say, yep, I love this learning objective. I'm going to keep it. For this one, I like the higher level objective, but I don't really care if they identify strategies or illustrate application of thinking. This is just a random example. And once I'm convinced I like what I see, I can hit OK, and I'm done now. I can always come back in and configure these objectives by removing them again or running some additional objectives over top. But that gives you a really healthy opportunity to create some really focused objectives for your learners so that when they're getting feedback while they're practicing their videos, they'll stay on track based on the content. I'll proactively ask a question I get all the time is, can I edit these objectives? Can I write my own? In version 1, because of how we need to control the way the AI works, they're not editable. You can uncheck them. You can rerun the objectives generator as many times as you want so that you can get to a place where you're like, I'm really happy with this. We're absolutely looking into what does editing look like in the future, but we just need to really control how the AI process works. Any questions on that? I see head nodding. So I know I'll show you what it looks like for the learner perspective. Additionally, I have my objective set. I still have the key terms and phrases. So this is the ability for you to actually indicate specific words or short phrases that you want the learner to say as part of their presentation. So I could put in here that I want them to say leadership because this is a leadership course, and that's something that I want them to say. I could choose whether I want it to be an exact match, so they must say leadership, or I can have it be a kind of fuzzy match, and it will be synonyms that are close to leadership, like management, that kind of thing. And we also have the addition of terms to avoid. If you have a constant or a common term that people are saying as part of this presentation that you want them to stay away from, you can actually put in the terms to avoid as well. And it will coach them on that so that when they finally get their version of their most, great version of their presentation, they're going to feel really confident that they got the coaching they need to do that. So I talked a lot through that, but if you already knew what those features were, you could probably set up an assignment in 5 to 6 minutes at this point. So we've really added a lot of that automation in there to support the ability for you guys to scale when you're creating these assignments. Okay, I want to make sure we get into what it looks like for the learner now to kind of tie those learning objectives together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump out and I'm going to re-log in as a student so you can see the student experience. And this is where we're going to cover all 4 of those video assignments from their perspective. So same course. And I just jumped into the content tool here. Oh, I didn't log me back in as instructor. Sorry, 1 second. Student 1, there we go.
While you're doing that, that'd be one feedback I would have for Bongo is that it would be nice to be able to experience the student view like as an instructor. I'm sure you hear that a lot.
Yeah, we do. Unfortunately, it works really well for institutions who allow for permission of instructors to impersonate learners. So that's the use case that a lot of institutions use, but we completely recognize that not all institutions provide that permission to instructors. So yeah, having a student preview, we hear you. Yeah.
So just to be clear, what I was referencing there for faculty who might not be aware is that when you actually go and if you choose view as a student in your D2L, right? Bongo though you will still be viewing it like an instructor. So the student view is much different than the instructor view, which can create some challenges for providing guidance.
Yeah. So while the assignment is active though, you can see what the student sees once they're working on their assignment. It's just there's no preview of a student view. So I can show you both examples of that as well. Okay, so I am now in the course as a learner. I do have the new content experience turned on. If you use the classic content experience, it would just mean that you have the left-hand bars where your module topics are, and then you would have the right-hand pane be the view into our assignments. I'm not sure which ones you guys have turned on which course, so this is just the new content experience, but we work the same regardless of what content experience you're in. So what I've done is I've set up all 4 assignment types in the content tool. So a learner would access it just like they would access a quiz in the content tool or a piece of content. We are just an activity just like everybody else. So now I am in that individual assignment that I just set up as the instructor. So this is just a fake communications course, and I'm trying to teach my learners about how to communicate like a leader. So you have the option, like I mentioned, to have a video. So this answers that question of how do I keep learners engaged? How do I make sure that they're feeling like they're involved in their course? Having that video alongside that HTML instructions is really engaging. And you'll also see that we now surface up these learning objectives. So those were those objectives I created as the instructor. Those higher level ones, it doesn't include the sub criteria I mentioned, because that can be used more for instructor scoring. But here, as the learner, I know what is expected of me based on these objectives. So now I'm going to come in and start getting ready to practice. The key value with the individual assignment is the learner can record themselves in this safe space as many times as they want and use our AI tools to get that instant feedback and that coaching so that they can feel like they can hone their skill prior to it going to their instructor. This is an incredibly valuable tool because it helps instructors scale as well, because you're not having to be involved in that iterative process of them practicing as much, because you can rely on those really powerful AI tools to do that for you. So The learner can come in here and choose to just pop up on camera. So that could be that oral presentation. Maybe they want to share their screen as well. So they have a PowerPoint, or even we're seeing a huge growth in answering that challenge of, ChatGPT concerns, where we're seeing everything from like a coding class. They're going to share their screen and actually do a presentation showing that they can code on screen so that they know they didn't just use, an AI solution for that. We do have a choose your microphone only. Sorry, that's because we have a lot of second language training courses where, you don't necessarily need to be on camera. Or I can upload a video that I've recorded elsewhere because maybe I'm in a lab. That's where the nursing example comes into play. So in this example, Cindy's already come in here and done some practices. And her practices will be represented across the top in tabs. So she came in and she did her first attempt. She recorded her how to communicate like a leader presentation. And right away, she can see that she's starting to get some AI coaching that is instantaneous as soon as she submitted her feedback. It gives her a pretty good summary here so that when she's toggling between her tabs, she can get a quick reminder of which one of these presentations she did. But more importantly, she can actually click down here into her detailed analysis and get a really thorough report of her feedback that is all based on those AI coaching. So at the top here right away, she can see what you've already seen in our platform for a year or two, which is those delivery metrics. Is she speaking clearly? Does she have too many filler words? What is her speaking rate? But also, did she hit any of those key terms and phrases that my instructor has required me to say as part of my presentation? That's the high level dashboard summary, but she can come down here and actually see her entire transcript automatically available to her, as soon as she has submitted her presentation. She can take that transcript and now toggle it between, what were my filler words? This is obviously supposed to be a bad example where she's saying likes and ums and so's far too often, so she's going to remember to change that. She's going to remember that she needs to hit some key terms, so she was supposed to be talking about these terms and never did, so I'm going to remember that for my next attempt. But what we've additionally added that's a lot more powerful is we now have tone analysis. So it's actually going to give the learner feedback on 4 dimensions of tone. Was she being confident or nervous? Was she being more formal or casual? This is not the coach telling her she should have been one or the other, but it's giving her indications of where on that scale she was based on what she said, so that the next time she can say, you know what, I meant to be a little bit more funny, so I'm going to add a joke in here. But what's kind of more meaty here is the tips and feedback. So this is where the coach is actually going to call out areas of excellence. So this is where she obviously demonstrated a specific learning objective, but more importantly, areas of improvement. So it specifically calls out this learning objective was not demonstrated. It should have provided specific examples. That is really targeted, really specific coaching tips that are based on those learning objectives that you created at the beginning of your assignment. So when we think about all those challenges we talked about before, how do I scale? How do I provide personalized feedback? What if I'm one instructor, I have no instructor, and this is self-paced? This lets you do all of those personalization things with using an AI as opposed to your time as well. There's obviously opportunities for human feedback as well, but this is in that coaching experience where learners really need that, I'm practicing at midnight and practicing into my mirror isn't going to give me feedback.
Yeah. I did ask a question, I think, since we're on this, just if you could briefly mention what feedback, if any, you've had from speakers. Is there a bias of any kind in this AI around different ways of speaking, accents, those kinds of things?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. So when you are so as an instructor, there is a link. Oh, here it is. There's more information. We include that for these questions exactly. So whether you're an instructor or a student, this is going to take you into our AI coach, where we talk about how does it handle bias? How does it handle accents? So I'll give you the quick one, but you can come in here and read this at any point in time. But we use AWS Transcribe to power the transcription. And AWS Transcribe supports a wide range of languages, dialects, accents. It's the same technology that Siri uses or any device that recognizes voice. So the speech to text has gotten really, really powerful over the years. So we have a lot of dialects and languages that we support. So that's the short answer. Long answer is in the FAQ. But I will also just quickly mention we support, I believe, up to 7 languages right now where the transcript will automatically hear you speaking French or Spanish or Dutch, and it'll translate it properly for that assignment and give you that feedback and coaching in the correct language. It's super easy for us to add additional languages, so I want to be very clear there. If you don't see one on the list, we can add them because it's through that AWS transcribe. It's just on demand as we get requested.
Great, thank you.
No problem. I'm going to try not to speak too quickly here, but I want to make sure we get through all of these. So in this example, Cindy was able to take her feedback. You can see she improved a lot. So I'm just going to quickly submit her second attempt, which is her golden one that she created based on having all of that really powerful feedback. So that is the first assignment of the individual. I'm going to quickly go over now to the second. So I'm just in the new content experience, which means I can click over to the next assignment, but I'm still obviously in Brightspace. And we have the question and answer workflow. So question and answer is really around putting that learner on the spot to answer questions in a limited amount of time. So this is that I'm either going to test them on their knowledge in a more modern way of doing quizzing, or it's more like a simulation. So in this example, I have set a simulated interview process because, again, I was seeing that you guys have a lot of medical courses. Maybe you're getting your learners in your nursing program ready for interviews in the real world. You can have a safe place for them to practice that simulated experience. So just like all my other assignments, I have this really engaging video setting me up for success. I have my instructions, and I'm also showcasing that you can have rubrics available. So you can have a rubric that says, here's what I'm expecting of you, and I'm going to also be assessed on this rubric. And now I get to come in and do the fun. I'm going to come off of camera here so that I don't go on 2 cameras at once, and hopefully that works. But now I'm ready to begin. So I'm going to activate my recorder. It's just going to make sure it can hear me and that my camera is engaged and I'm ready to go for the assessment. So hi, we're ready to go. And it's going to ask me my first question.
A member of your family decides to depend solely on alternative medicine for treatment of his or her significant illness. What would you do?
So hopefully you saw me waving in the top little corner there while I was doing this. I have set up this question and answer that it is going to record my reaction to the question. That's one option. Another option you have is that you can not record my reaction, and instead there's a clock that counts down, and it's giving you some time to catch your breath, really process the question, and then respond in a timely manner. The distance or the time of that break is totally up to you. You can have 5 seconds, 10 seconds, give them 30 seconds to really process the question before they answer. You then can see at the top here that there's a minimum and a maximum. You can even set it that they have to speak for a minimum of a minute in order to properly respond, but then cut them off in 1 minute and 5 seconds, whatever time length you want, or have no minimum maximum and just have them respond as many times as they want. You can also have question banks. So maybe you're concerned about learners sharing questions with each other. So you have the ability to have 20 questions and then just randomize 3 questions that go to every learner. So it's a lot of flexibility there. And now I feel good with my response, so I'm going to submit it there. So I had done 2 previous before, so that's where the responses are processing at the bottom. It's probably not going to process in time for me quickly, but at the bottom under this 3-dot menu, once they're processed, you have the option to turn on AI Coach and give them feedback even in this workflow. So the use case for that would be, this is an interview practice. You didn't want to give them feedback while they were doing the questions, but after the fact, it's really great for them to hear, was I speaking too quickly? Did I have, oh, there we go. Did I have too many filler words? This was me doing my fake one before. See, I made sure I was going and ahs. I'm like, oh, that was a really stressful interview. I'm gonna try to practice better next time. So lots of opportunities for AI feedback in that process as well. Okay, so we have hit individual, question and answer. Now we're going to go into the group project. So this is where it's more than one learner, and it is the one-stop shop for all things collaboration within Brightspace. So I will recognize that Brightspace has a groups tool, but the groups tool is really in the Brightspace platform is really just around learners forming together and submitting something. It doesn't answer that challenge of how can my learners communicate or collaborate with each other? How can they stay on track? Is there a way for them to meet together virtually if they can't get together in person? So that's where the video assignments group tool comes into play. I will note that the timing, it's Tuesday now, Thursday of this week, this is going to get a bit of a UI refresh. So it's going to have all the exact same functionality. It's just going to look a little bit more sleeker, like that individual workflow. So I'll call out some minor changes, but again, no major changes as far as functionality. So with the group tool, you have the ability to form groups, and the learners, when they log into their assignment, they can see who is part of their group. As the instructor, you guys can automatically just assign 5 team members, or you can choose who you want to be in which group. The groups can come in here and see, again, video-based instructions as well as HTML, and if there's a rubric or learning objective, or sorry, rubric assigned to it. And then they can come in here and start collaborating. So this is where it's going to get a nice refresh here. So there's not going to be stars and stuff, but as a learner, I can come in individually and record. So we see a lot of presentations where, you know, Craig's responsible for the intro, I'm responsible for the middle part, and somebody else is responsible for the ending. So we can all record ourselves individually and we can stitch those together. But more commonly, we see the ability or the need for groups to be able to create a meeting and meet together virtually. So this answers that challenge of, you know, I'm an instructor and I don't want to have to participate in the meeting. I don't want to have to create the meeting. I just need an easy place for them to collaborate. They can come in here and create their own meetings, meet together, and do everything they need as part of that assignment. They can even record that meeting if that's what they want to submit as their presentation. Or, just like I mentioned, think about video assignments as more than title suggests. They don't have to submit a video. They could actually just submit a file. Maybe they're working on a document together. So they can do that as well. And they can also do things like create milestones. So we all know in group projects, everybody says they're going to do what they're supposed to do, but everybody loses track. So you can do things like create a milestone and set ownership of those milestones and decide, you know, is it complete or not? Everything right now is in this group or work in progress area. In the new UI, you'll see these stars go away, and instead it'll be much like the individual where it says prepare submission, and then you choose what you want to submit. But what's really great is, again, you have that AI coach for any videos that were recorded individually so that people can get that feedback when they need. And then if they did individually record any of their meetings or their videos, they can just come into this combined video, say, I want to include both of these, and change the format however they'd like, and submit that together. The time limit within the virtual classroom for the groups is anything up to 2 hours that can be recorded for submission. So in your individual assignment, that means you can record yourself for 2 hours if you want. In the group, you can record up to 2 hours, all of these workflows. I've never seen somebody submit a 2-hour video, but it's possible. And then there's other really helpful little tools, but important. So there's group chat if you want to keep track of anything. And there's also activity logs. Maybe the instructor wants to see who's kind of been doing what and when. And then last but not least, it's come up quite often actually lately, is team evaluations. I want to be able to have the team members evaluate each other on how well they participated. So this is going to get a refresh right now. It is a rubric that pops up for each learner, or you can just do a 5-star rating. It's going to be in a little bit more of a linear and clean process in the new UI.
There is a question. How many people can attend the meeting? Is there a limit for how large of a group you can have?
Well, the largest group can be the full number of students in the class. Okay. Our virtual classroom has a limit of 150 generally. I've never seen a group project with 150 people in it, but again, it's feasible. Okay. And last but not least, and can you remind me, Craig, how much time we have left?
About 10 minutes.
Okay, perfect. And then we have the fourth workflow. So that's interactive video. So that one I quickly mentioned, it's about taking any video content you would normally have in your course anyways, and answering that challenge of, how do I know my learners watched it? How do I know my learners are engaged? Did they remember anything about what they just watched? Or did they hit play and just like go make a coffee if they're at home? That is a big challenge in Brightspace Core in general, because if you click a video, it's marked as complete regardless if they interacted with it or consumed it. So we see interactive video used a lot to answer those challenges. So it's exactly how it sounds. As a learner, I'm just going to begin my assignment. This is a fake example on how important social media awareness is for learners. And then as the instructor, I can pop up a multiple choice question as many times as I want. I can have a lot of flexibility with these multiple choice questions. So I can let them get it wrong. So I'm just going to pick a random one and submit the answer. I got it right. I meant to get that wrong. That's hilarious. But I can show that all of this text is written by you guys. So if you just want to say correct and leave it at that, or you want to say correct and explain why they're correct, or if they're wrong and explain why they're wrong. And in this example, I could just hit continue regardless if I got it right or wrong. Or you can have it set up they have to get it right before they move on. And in which case, they can't just keep trying until they get it. It'll rewind to the last time they got a question wrong, or right, I mean, and have them consume that content again. So that's really important for that challenge of how do I know they're actually listening and not just guessing. You do have an option to do more than just multiple choice. You could also have the camera turn on. So we have a lot of times people are using this not as an assessment, but more of an engagement tool. So here's a video on something in your course. Now your camera's going to engage and you're just going to reflect on it. What do you think about that? What would you do in that scenario? And you can have that recording go to a peer instead of potentially just going to your instructor. So you can have it just set up as a peer activity where you're having learners engage with each other and just really thinking through their reflections along the way. So that was the 4 different assignment types. So hopefully that's really clear from a use case perspective. Again, the individual oral presentation or demonstration of skill, the question and answer, we've got group, and then we have the interactive video. I do want to talk a little bit about the feedback options, just if you don't have too much time, but I will pause and try to read some questions along the way as well. They're still typing. So I will just really talk quickly about these assessment types, just to be really clear. From an instructor perspective, I was showing you just how the learner submits the video, but you have the opportunity, obviously, as the instructor, once you receive the video, is you can provide timestamp feedback. So you have the ability to give point in time feedback. So this is my learner on the left-hand side, and on the right-hand side, as I'm consuming their video, I can give them type out timestamp feedback, or I can come on camera and provide my personalized video-based feedback. Peer review, we have the same kind of workflow where peers can consume their fellow peers' videos and give timestamp feedback, which can be either anonymous, in which case it would be text-based only, or you can have the camera as well and they can provide that feedback. A lesser known feature, but a really powerful one for those that use it, is self-assessment. So you also have the option that once they've submitted their video, they're now forced to fill out, but they're required to fill out the rubric as well on themselves, because it's really taking their feedback into consideration on how well they did. And then of course we have the AI coach feedback that I was talking about. That auto analysis score at the top, which is really around their delivery and their content, you can choose to use that as a percentage that goes to the gradebook. It's not used very often, but it is a possibility if you'd like. So all of these can be converted to a percentage and will be sent to the gradebook automatically. Yes, we do random peer review. So you can either choose to let the learners choose who they want to review, or you can just say randomly serve it up, and whoever's next in line will go to the peer for review.
Dana, do you have anything on your product development for more question types in the interactive video?
It is, you're asking for 2 things that we hear common, but aren't on the short-term roadmap at all right now. But we're definitely looking for ideas, because I feel like we get asked a lot for, we want more question types, but we're not really getting a lot of feedback on what types of questions would be important. So we'd love that feedback. Either I can get through Craig, or if you guys can put in the chat on what types of additional questions would be important and why. Written response, got it.
So was that your entire presentation, or?
Yeah, only because I know we're running out of time, so I can pause. There's lots more we can dive into if we have time, or if you have questions. I can also do a lot more additional sessions after this.
Yeah, I set the meeting for 45 minutes, but if you have a few more minutes to stay, and people can stay if they would like, or depart, it's up to them completely. But do you have a little bit more time for some more Q&A or deeper dive?
Absolutely, please. I'm going to jump back in here and log in as an instructor too, so I can answer maybe some of the instructor questions that might come up. And do we have any power users on the phone?
Raise your hand if you're a power user or put in some kind of reaction. I'm going to give a heart. I use it like in so many classes. Well, I teach public speaking, business communication, so it might make a lot of sense in those classes anyway. But you gave some really good use cases that I wasn't even thinking about, particularly the for labs and simulations. And I would even say, I would think sign language could be a great course, or any other types of languages. So
yeah, anything sign language is a really big use case as well. Okay, awesome. Here we got some new users. So I did want to show, I'll keep talking until Craig gives me the proverbial cane off the stage. But I did want to showcase what it looks like for instructors as you guys are looking through your learner dashboard, as we call it. So this is a showcase. So actually, I'll just go back one step because I clicked there without telling you where I was. I logged back in as an instructor, and I went back to the content tool. I could also access this through the video assignments nav bar, but it's just a really quick and easy way to go from the nav bar. And this is where I can see the list of any student, where they are in their process for that assignment. I can come in here. This is obviously a demo course. We only have a few students, but hypothetically, you have 100 students in your course. You want to be able to search by name, or sort by name, or status, or score. There's a lot of opportunities for you to come in here and organize yourself. Maybe I want to see, tomorrow's the deadline, and I want to filter by not viewed. I better reach out to Greta because she's running out of time here. She hasn't even looked at the assignment. So lots of ways that you can stay engaged with your students along the way. Once I come in here, I have the option to jump into a learner that needs evaluation. So with this one, Bobby Tables has submitted his final presentation. So I can come in here. It doesn't look like a Bobby, but I guess Bobby could be a female name. I can come in here and give her feedback. I can use my question bank here. So there's an opportunity from a scaling perspective. If you have a lot of comments you're constantly saying, you can just quickly add those in along the way. So this is that timestamp feedback I was talking about.
Hello, everyone.
Oh,
hi, Christian. It's good to...
Sorry, I forgot to pause here there. I can see what the AI coach has provided as far as feedback and tips and feedback. So I can see what has been provided to her by the coach and not myself. So I can use that. This is an example of no peer review in here. So, but lots of opportunity for you to consume the peer review feedback if there was some as well. And in the groups tool, you would see any kind of team evaluations. Anything else you guys want me to dive in?
I'll just say a few things that were in my back of my head as I was watching you go through that. You can auto assign the grades back into the grade book. Mm-hmm. So if you want, for example, like a pass-fail, there's different grade types. There's a lot of options actually. So you might want to show that, Dana. But then you could do like pass-fail, and it could automatically go back into the D2L grade book as whatever the score is for passing or failing. Or you can hold it off and then say send it to the grade book. Another thing that's really important, just as a best practice, anytime you're using these types of tools, I would give a very low stakes assignment. So have the students complete like an optional, go through the whole experience of submission and all of that stuff, and then see what kind of outcome they get, just to make it comfortable for them.
As their first one, you mean?
What's that?
Like as their first attempt at it?
Correct, yeah. Not even like their first attempt and then re-record it and so forth, but an actual like full assignment that's probably just like extra credit or no credit at all, practice. Yeah.
Awesome. So what I was quickly just jumping into was to show what Craig was mentioning is we have a ton of different evaluation types. It will just default to percentage because that's the most often used one. But we have literally everything. 5-star is used most often in corporate. So a lot of people say, why would I use a 5-star rating? But that's a corporate use case here. We have auto pass, so regardless of what you've done, you can just pass because you've completed the activity. That's an important one to call out because I was saying we are more than an assessment tool, we're an engagement tool as well. So maybe you're just setting up, like Craig said, a fun activity, a reflective moment. You want them to do it, but you're not really that caring about the results of the video itself. You can choose a pass fail. rubric. The peer review, that's actually a really unique one because I know Brightspace doesn't have a lot of core peer review workflows. You can actually have the peer review scores that will average. So if I had 3 different people or 3 different peers assess me, their 3 combined scores will average and then send that to the gradebook, which is a really cool use case. The auto analysis, like I mentioned, and I will say that this smart scoring isn't available to Brightspace just yet, so stay tuned for February release notes about that one. I didn't want to muddy the conversation too much, but to give a sneak peek, the concept here is that you can actually start using our AI to do your initial scoring of your learners. So those videos that are submitted that are the golden version, our AI will actually consume those and suggest a score that you can then, as the instructor, approve. Of course, you are the human involved in the end, but you can imagine it being like a co-pilot that's going to get you 95% of the way, and then you can just go in and fact check and agree whether you like the score or not. So February release notes, and then we can start talking about that. So you won't see that, by the way. That's the only thing of everything I showed you today is you won't see that smart scoring option. Otherwise, everything else I showed you is available. Okay. Well, I know we covered a lot, so definitely let that marinate, and Craig knows how to get a hold of me so we can answer any questions along the way. And you guys can start using it today.
Yeah, and be on the lookout for more sessions. Like we did a session on Bongo just last week, kind of a very intro overview, and we'll do it again sometime soon. Also, hopefully I'll get Dana back for the AI week, maybe just to focus on smart scoring since it'll be coming around just around that time. And yeah, thank you all so much. I know it's a busy time of the year, so appreciate you stopping in. I will post this video eventually to our YouTube so people can watch it anytime. If you have any questions, though, reach out. Leticia is on the call, so she can wave and say hi to everyone. She's an instructional designer. We have Priscilla on the call, too. She is our digital conversions expert. And we also have Jeff Gardner on the call, who is kind of becoming the go-to for some of these video products and can also talk to you about Echo 360 or Stream if needed, other video platforms we have. But really just choose one, maybe 2 if you need them, and stick with them so you're not overwhelming your students with different tools. Dana, thank you so much. Have a good holiday.
Thanks, guys.